Hello, my name is Tanya Hopwood. I'm a provisional child and adolescent psychologist with Oracle Psychology, and I have a PhD in research psychology. Part of my research has looked into people's reactions to media reports and social discussions of global threats, and we found that even without the experience of an actual crisis, many people have a lot of anticipatory stress reactions that can negatively impact their lives. Now recently, as a global community, we've come face to face with an unprecedented level of threat and uncertainty. With the COVID-19 pandemic, most of us are experiencing heightened levels of anxiety. For all of us, life has taken a very unexpected turn, and we find ourselves in a situation we've never encountered before, and one where the outcomes are uncertain. Now, as human beings, we don't tend to feel very comfortable in situations that are outside of our control. It's natural then that for many of us, the COVID-19 crisis brings up discomfort, anxiety, and even distress at times. For this reason, we thought it would be helpful to post some short videos to give you some ideas of ways in which you might better manage this anxiety for both yourself and your family. Firstly, let's take a quick look at anxiety. Well, we all know that anxiety is a state of apprehension and tension, and it tends to get a pretty bad rap. In itself, though, anxiety isn't a bad thing. Anxiety is a natural human reaction that helps us get motivated for action. If you've ever experienced anxiety before speaking in front of an audience, sitting a test, or going for a job interview, you'll know that this type of tension can be extremely useful for motivating us to adequately prepare. Back in prehistoric times, feelings of anxiety and fear kept our ancestors safe and alive. For instance, spotting an unfamiliar figure would have generated feelings of anxiety, and this kept our ancestor alert and aware, ready to act depending on what happened next. If the figure turned out to be a hostile member of another tribe, the anxiety would ramp up to a fear response. This coincides with the activation of certain brain circuits, the fastest of which occurs in an area of the brain called the limbic system, and in particular, a structure called the amygdala. This fight or flight system that you've all heard of orchestrates the release of chemicals that raise the heart rate and blood pressure and prepare our muscles for action. This emergency alarm system swings into action really quickly before the logical, rational part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex up here, even has time to evaluate what's happening. Now, obviously, this process has enormous value for the survival of our species. It allows us to fight off a threat or flee from a predator to stay alive. In our modern world, though, there tends to be less need for this emergency alarm system in terms of protecting us from physical dangers. Threats today are often more complex, and this intense response can be unhelpful. When this emergency system is triggered at times when the threat is either not real or when there's no immediate danger, it's like a false alarm. This occurs a lot for people who have anxiety disorders, and it happens because our brains respond in exactly the same way to both real and perceived danger. As human beings, we don't help this in a way because we've got this amazing ability to vividly imagine things and to really easily take our brains to those dreaded what-if scenarios. Okay, sounds fair enough. But what about when something like a global pandemic comes along? Well, this is clearly a real threat, and it's absolutely natural to experience anxiety around this and to feel frightened sometimes. And just like with other challenging events in our lives, a bit of anxiety can be useful. For instance, it can motivate us to take adequate precautions when we're out in the world. It helps us pay attention and follow the rules around social distancing, and it prompts us to engage in protective behaviours like washing our hands regularly with soap and water. So we can see how our anxiety, in moderation, works to help keep us safe. What we want to avoid right now is ramping up our anxiety into a fear response that will cause us unnecessary distress and lead us to think and behave in unhelpful ways. Fear responses mobilise us for immediate action, but they're no good for helping us think clearly and rationally and for staying calm. What can be really helpful right now is learning techniques for grounding ourselves and staying as calm as possible in the present moment, rather than getting hooked and dragged around by our anxious thoughts and worse fears. To help us do this, we want to be able to notice and acknowledge our anxious thoughts and feelings, notice our bodies around these thoughts and feelings, check in with the wider world around us, and then bring our attention back to the here and now and do something meaningful and useful in line with our values. We've provided a little video in this section to help you, as parents, to build and practice these grounding skills. What about our kids though? How can we help them right now? Well, we've also provided a short video with some tips for parents about how to help your children cope with this confusing and challenging period where they're probably encountering many changes and perhaps missing friends and extended family. Also, we've provided a couple of short video exercises for kids to teach them some basic grounding skills for calming down while staying in the moment. Thanks for watching.